But now, when you write a novel, it has to be read by sensitivity readers, and everything. And so this novel was, of course, and I have three major characters who are in fact black. They passed with flying colors. Everybody hated her, though. This main character, they just said, "What a terrible guy! We can't believe we have to read about this guy. His language is awful, blah blah blah." But I liked him. He's still there. I cut a few words, but he is very not politically correct on many opinions that he has. Okay, House of Cards is the name of this first little section, and this gets us going, and this shows what the book is about. The doorbell rings promptly at 10 a.m., sending its jazzy little Hawaiian tune throughout the stately rooms of the big pink tropical house. Hell, mansion is more like it, in Key West, 108 Washington Street. A primo address, only 1 block from the classy Casa Marina Hotel, and also Louis' Backyard Restaurant, also classy, also pink. Too much pink in this goddamn town for a man, a real man anyway, a man like her used to be. Yeah, right. Shit. This house would go for a couple of mil right now. The song sounds again through the scented air of the solarium. Big flowers bloom in every place in here. Susan used to love them so. Bless her soul. Damn it all to hell. We are going to a hoogie loud. Herbert Atlas sings along as he pads across the marble floor in his lime green Crocs toward the carved mahogany front door. His red and black plaid pajama pants held up by his considerable butt. The blue flowered Hawaiian shirt is open 3 buttons down, exposing curly white chest hair. But shit, he's got to pee again already. He's only been up since 8:30 and he's peed, what, 5 or 6 times? Old age is all about urine. Who would have thunk it? That's his first wife, Roxana, used to say back in the day, that same woman. Bless her soul, too. Herb crosses the black and white vestibule to throw the deadbolt and turn the large brass knob. The girl stands before him in a patch of sunlight that falls through thick palm fronds to surround her like a spotlight. She's smiling already. She looks like a kid, with those wide brown eyes beneath the blonde bangs, her high, shiny ponytail swinging as she steps forward in her white tennis shoes. They look brand new. She wears jeans and some kind of a pink tunic, professional looking. Atlas residence? Pedicure? Her voice is low, nice. Yeah, that's right. I'm the husband. Herbert Atlas, call me Herb. But I was contacted by a Miss Pat Devine. The girl twitches her nose as she pulls a little notebook out of her big sparkly purse and looks at it. Yeah, that's right. That's my wife's daughter's wife, if you could follow that. Or what the hell? This is Key West, isn't it? You got all kinds of situations down here, am I right? The girl grins at me, one snaggletooth, which is adorable. So, this pedicure is for my wife Susan. She's the one getting this pedicure. If you can get her, this is still long enough to get. She's got some kind of a toe problem going on. Jesus, who knows? I can't take her back to the salon where she used to go over on Simons, and they said she caused a disturbance over there. This classy lady, well, you'll see. Oh, you'll see. And she certainly does. Susan has become very unmanageable in certain ways, but this girl has a sort of a genius with her, and she's singing to her before long as she does a manicure. She sings, she does a manicure, she does a pedicure. Susan is all calmed down and finally napping when she leaves, and no one can quite believe it. And so he's paying her, he's paying her, he can't believe it, and he's saying to the others who are there, he said, you gotta go in there and look at Susan. Honest to God, she's all relaxed, she's sleeping like a baby right now. You won't believe it, we gotta get that girl back, she's like magic or something. And so he goes out, he pays her, he keeps a money belt that has only $100 bills in it, and he gives her 2. And then she's leaving, and he's watching her, walk down the street, swinging that long ponytail. when all of a sudden, he checks his money belt and then sees something shiny he can just glimpse under the frilly edge of a fern on the paving stones. The girl's wallet. Dang. He retrieves it and then hitches up his pajama bottoms and charges across the garden, into the house, across the solarium, past that ugly as hell Chihuly glass sculpture, and into the vestibule, where he throws open the big door to shout, "Renee, Renee, you left your wallet, honey." He's almost too late. She's already out on the street, nearly gone, but she hears him. She's turning around now. On impulse, almost like a reflex, Herb opens the wallet and looks at some kind of an ID picture, which shows her with a much thinner face, long brown hair, no smile. Deirdre June Mullins, Mountain Home School, Pineville, North Carolina. She drops her bag and comes running down the wall, ponytail flipping from side to side. He holds the wallet out to her. "Oh my goodness," she says, grabbing it, giving him a big smile. "Thanks so much, Mr. Atlas." "Sure thing, honey. See you next time." Herb steps out the door and stands on the stoop to watch her go all the way down Washington Street, out of sight. And so then this is a little bit from her point of view, which is always actually in the first person sections. "I swear, it was all I could do to keep from skipping all the way down Washington Street. Skipping just like me and Martha used to do, coming up the holler after the school bus let us all come home. Skipping and jumping for joy, with $200 bills burning a hole in my purse, and plenty more where that came from. I know a good thing when I see it, and I was going to jump right on this one. That poor old lady and that wild old man, they needed me. They had a bad situation over there, and I was the girl for the job. I'm real good at making people feel better, even though Paula said I had to get over that and just think about what is good for Dee. Well, I thought, this is good for Dee, for sure. I could just see myself coming to this big pink house again and again, giving everybody over there manicures and massages, whatever they want. I could just say I'm a trained massage therapist. Why not? Anybody can rub on people and make them feel better. Old people just like to be touched. Anyhow, nobody ever touches them anymore because they have gotten so old and icky. It's real sad, but you know, I don't mind them. So there are our two main characters, and before you know it, she has made herself a real part of this household. And by the time finally Susan is in the kind of shape where she does need, further care, the family intervenes. There's this terrible intervention, and so Susan goes off ahead of her to the home, and he's getting ready to be moved up there, and she comes by just to tell him goodbye. And he finds that just at that point, a key in an old golf shoe, and it's the key to his Porsche Carrera, which they had taken away from him, of course. It's locked in the garage. And he says, "Honey, you want to take a little ride?" And she said, "Well, sure." And so it still works, So she gets in it, and there they go. Off on a ride, which goes a little bit farther than they thought, and then a little bit farther than that. And before they know it, they are actually headed up the Keys of fabled Route 1 and getting to know each other on the way. She turns out to be pregnant, a surprise. But anyway, that's one of the things that is talked about in different points. So here's one little minute. They stopped for lunch and you learn their backstory as they go. They stopped for lunch at the Green Turtle Inn on Isle Morada. And it's her talking. Mr. Atlas orders a pina colada for himself and a glass of Pinot Grigio for me. I'm not supposed to drink, I say immediately, but he just says, "Oh, come on, nobody's supposed to drink." "Have you got any chips?" I ask, and the waiter smiles and nods and brings a whole bowl of tortilla chips and some hummus and nuts too, along with their drinks. For lunch, I have a fish sandwich with fries and coleslaw because I know I have got to eat my vegetables now. Since I'm eating for two, and Mr. Atlas has a big cheeseburger and fries, which I know darn well he is not supposed to eat. He's going to die before we ever get back to campus, because everybody is going to be so mad at me. But that doesn't seem to matter so much right now. And it doesn't matter at all with my second class of That's a girl, Mr. Atlas says. The lady bartender at the bar keeps looking at me, and when I get up to go to the bathroom, she follows me down the little hall and says, "Honey, are you okay? Are you here of your own free will?" I give her a big smile and say, "Yes, ma'am, I'm with my grandfather." Okay, and then one more tiny thing, and then this is it. That's all I'm going to tell you. Okay. This is the point at which they see the sign for the first time high up, that sign that Callie and I first saw, 15 minutes later, that's when they see it high up, a huge flashing electronic sign like a banner which extends across the entire interstate highway. Route 1, northbound and southbound, all 8 lanes. Silver alert, Porsche Carrera 2001. That's the car, and it was actually the car that we saw. Canary yellow VKD, call number 347. She sees it first. Look, that's us, isn't it? That's our car. That's us. Well, I'll be goddamn. Her strikes the wheel so hard that the Porsche veers into the center lane before he can correct it. "Mr. Atlas, what are you doing?" she squeals. "Sorry, honey. I guess the jig is up." For the first time today, her feels really, really, really old. "What are you talking about? What's a jig?" They got a police alert out for us for this car. A silver alert. That must be like an amber alert. What they put when young girls go missing. If it's up here on this highway, that means it'll be up on every highway in Florida. Trust me. She still doesn't get it. Well then, why does it say silver alert if it's about us? That's me, honey. I'm old. It's my car. That silver means geezer. Geezer on the run. "I'm here too," she cries out. "Me too. They've got a police alert out for me too, don't they?" "Oh yeah, you did. And I'm sorry, honey. I'm real sorry I got you into all this trouble. I guess I was using some real bad judgment. It's all my fault. I'll tell him that. You won't get in any trouble, I swear." He could kick his own ass for doing this stupid stuff. What was he thinking? But when he looks over at the girl again, she's not heartbroken. She's not crying. She doesn't even look upset. Instead, she's sitting up straight in her seat, smiling, literally beaming. Her whole face is lit up like the sun. "That's me," she says in a kind of wonderment. "That's me they're looking for too. On every billboard, on every highway, all across Florida, all across the state." That's what she said. Florida is one of the largest states in the nation. Then he watches in astonishment while she opens her purse and carefully puts on her lipstick. I think she powders her nose before giving him her biggest, pinkest smile. "Okie dokie," she says, "I think I'm ready. We'll probably be on TV, don't you think, since we're so famous? And maybe the internet, too." "Sounds like you want to be arrested," Herb says. "Probably the smart thing to do would be just go ahead and turn ourselves in, right now. Next exit, face the music." "What music?" she asks. I'm thinking maybe she'll get a chance to sing in front of all those cameras. Maybe she'll be discovered.
Most concerned for any potential accidents, my mother had had the diving board removed, and that had been just 3 feet above the water. He was 8 times higher than that. He had thick, corn yellow hair tied back into a ponytail, broad shoulders, was thin at the waist, and he stood spotlighted by the sun. I thought, holy cow, he's about to jump. I was 12. Until that day, I never thought of a roof as a thing an actual person might, on purpose, jump off of. To get there, he first had to stand on the back porch railing and then balance on a window sash, lift himself up over the gutter and roll away from the edge. After that, it was a simple walk at a sloping 40-degree angle, barefoot on hot shingles to the other side of the house where the roof flattened out. This was the roof over my mother and father's bedroom, a 1960s addition to the 1930s house. He was standing at the edge of my parents' bedroom, surveying his flight path into the water. I guessed it could be done. It looked like it could be done. With a little lift, he would miss the concrete skirt and splash into the deep end. But there were a multitude of ways for the jump to go wrong. He must have been considering a few of them. Or maybe it wasn't William who was considering these things. Maybe it was just me. And now he took 3 steps back away from the edge of the roof with a running start, the bold approach, the liftoff. In my memory, this happened in slow motion. Maybe it actually was in slow motion. Maybe he was that good. And then he was airborne. He hit the water, of course, made a giant splash and disappeared beneath the wave. Not for too long, but long enough for me to wonder if he would ever come up. Then he surfaced, leaning back his head to let the water pull his hair away from his face. Then he got out of the pool, climbed the house, and did it again. And again. It was pretty magnificent. I was spellbound. It wasn't some unformed idea I had about masculinity or manliness in him that I was drawn to. I wasn't into that then or now. It was just the wildness, the daring do, his willingness to take flight, literally, into the unknown, an openness to experience and chance that so far in my short life had not been previously modeled to me by anyone. Whatever I was, he wasn't that, and I wasn't sure how much I wanted to be the me I was. That's what I would learn from him, though, over the years, how to become the me I wanted, not by being him, but by watching him. Later, though, much later, I wondered how the rest of our lives would have turned out had he died that day instead of the day he did by his own hand 3 decades later, had he tried for the water but missed. So that's what this book is about, my life with this man, William Neely, who goes on to do amazing things, as we'll talk about, writes books, did these maps, which some of you may have seen before, on the river, other lives are presented as well, and to go into the whole thing would be to read the whole thing. So I'm not going to do it, and we'll talk about it further. Jennifer.
Wow, that's such beautiful readings. The very first thing that I thought about when Stephanie asked me to talk to you two is these books are so different. What are we going to talk about where they overlap? And I just kept finding one thing after another where these books overlap and where so many things in common. And one is this character development that is so clear in both books. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that. Herb is I love Herb, and I don't know who wanted to change him at all because he's such a great character, and Renee/Nate is such a fabulous character. And you are such a wonderful character in your own book, and your brother-in-law is a wonderful character. But it is different in memoir and fiction. You've both worked in both genres, so I was wondering if you could talk some about that and the importance of that, and how much you're thinking about you as a character when you're writing memoir, and how that process happens.
Me go first, okay. Both of these books, as you said, one's a novel, one's nonfiction. One's definitely funnier than the other one, and also has more F words in it. I do feel like she's been saving them up her whole career. Put it in this book. But the way that they're the same is that all books are about how we become who we are. They're stories, they're origin stories. And that's what we have in Silver Alert. We see how Dee Dee why she is who she is. And in this book, we find out who William is, what happened to him to make him who he was, and honestly, you'll learn more about me than you will ever want to know. And why I'm sitting here today. One of the reasons that I am sitting here today is because of William and because of his influence in my life. And so I feel like that's one of the corresponding ideas of our books, and that's one reason why I feel like this is such a good pairing.
One of the many things I love about Silver Alert is the way Dee Dee thinks word, whenever she uses a new word, and that recurs throughout, and she's just building her vocabulary as she is becoming who she's going to be, as she is deepening her understanding of what led her to where she is and of where she is.
Dee Dee has had a very unfortunate early life, and she's gotten in lots of trouble. She was trafficked and so on. Then she went to a place sort of for rehabilitation and so on. And and she's real smart, but she never did really have an education. And so now she's learning words, and she's learning a word all the time. And so she keeps saying, instead of that, word, word, word. And, she's training her. She gets a vocabulary book herself, now that she's on her own in Key West, but she's still learning these words. And it's just, language is what gives us agency. Finally, somebody who's never, ever, ever able to speak for herself or have any life, now she's got these vocabulary things, and she's learning a word, and so it's word, as she goes through and becomes, we hope, who she will be, because we've got to be able to speak, and we've got to be able to speak for ourselves. And so this part of the book meant a whole lot to me, and what she had been through with her story, and I've been very interested in the kind of place that she has been to give her some training and give her some agency. And now she's giving herself some words. So, yeah.
Right. This book is all about telling stories that aren't mine, that I have inherited and I've chosen to tell, because I feel like stories that need to be told. In the case of this book, particularly though, after William died, he died in 2001, and then his wife, my sister Holly, died in 2011, and when she died, I, cleaning out her place, we found William's journals, private journals, in a closet, buried back of a closet. And Laura, my wife, was there. She's here tonight, and sort of my sisters, Rangeley and Barry. And we all decided that it was appropriate to get rid of them because they weren't ours, and we had no right to look at them. And so I took them to the dumpster where we were getting rid of everything and put them in the trunk of my car. So eventually, I'll fast forward a little bit. Eventually I did look at them. And that was the spark for this entire book, is learning who this man I admired so much was in his entirety. He was two people. And in researching that and in reading about that, that is when I realized his life story is a lot like all of our stories, and that so much of this is hidden. He is just an incredibly exaggerated version of that.
I started as a newspaper reporter, for one thing, and I just love to get to ask complete strangers terribly personal questions about themselves. And, you know, I just love to find out what is making other people tick. And so I have ended up writing a lot of books because I just wanted to find out what it's like, what it would be like to be that kind of person. And doing a lot of research, like my book that I wrote about serpent handling believers. All right, I was in those churches, but it wasn't me, but I wanted to find out what it was like to be that person. And so I think in a way, I've written so much fiction because I just love to be other people, at least for a little while, and see what makes them tick. And it's just a great, wonderful thing to get to do for a little while. So.
Well, just to your point, I agree about writing things that you make up is in many ways easier in that you don't have to worry about the facts.
It is.
And what I discovered in writing this book is that a memoir is a true story written by an unreliable narrator.
Great one.
And if we all told the same story, if we're in a family, for instance, and we sat, like, put everybody in different rooms to tell the same story, it would be completely different.
Yeah.
Well, the story is always different depending on who is telling it, and that's the key to anything you're ever writing is what is your point of view, you know, who's telling the story. And I guess I get tired of being myself. I love to get to be other people, you know. What is more fun?
Yeah.
So fun. It's such a fun way into talking about hard topics, I think. Which both of these do. Can you both? I'm really interested in, Daniel, you talk a lot about language, the sort of the limits of language and learning about becoming a writer by osmosis is the wrong word, but just being around artistic people and creative people and how formative that was for you. So I'm wondering if you could both talk some about what you think a good book can do, what you think a good book can't do, both memoir, fiction, whatever genre you want to talk about maybe.
Well, I think we want to tell a good story. We want to keep people turning the page. And there are ways to do that. It is, in some ways, a kind of a magic trick that you can bring a character to life on the page. That doesn't make any sense, really. There's no, these are words that we type, and we make the reader hopefully care about these characters. And so sometimes they'll cry. You know, when somebody dies, you hope that you will cry. How does that happen? And that is, to me, magic. And I think of my books, and I'm sure you do too, Louise, these little emissaries for ourselves that can go out, and somebody in California can be reading it and laughing and then crying. And that's just a form of magic, and it's also really powerful. And it's done through language. I feel like every sentence is important, and there's not one that's not important. So in order for the reader to believe in the book, they have to believe in every single sentence and every single word that you write. If they don't, then it diminishes their belief in this fictional or non-fictional dream, because this is, and I did want this to read like a novel. And I talked about leaving things out. There were so many great stories about William. And people were writing me all the time who've read this book, who knew him. And they're telling me all these great stories that I wish I had in the book. I really do. I really want to go to, let's stop this and I'll put another version out there. But at the same time, you get the idea. You learn about him, and then we're moving on. We're always moving ahead. And if we linger too long in one place just because the writer loves it, it's not thinking enough about the reader.
Can I say one thing too? I think, one thing too, though, that the book is always about, it's about the narrator too. It's about what does the story mean? The story is William, but what did it mean to this boy? You know, and that's what is so fascinating to me, particularly as the mother of boys, you know, and, it's just, you know, what did it mean? What does it mean to you? And so that's always another home story too. And it's always very, very meaningful. Yeah.
Stories beget other stories.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know we started late and there were interruptions, so I don't want to stop you prematurely, but I just want to check in about taking questions and respect everybody's time. Thank you all so much again. So if you still have some more conversation in you, I'm sure everybody would be fine with that, but I also just want to, see if you're ready for the audience questions. Okay, thank you so
Maybe you
much.
have a one more question that you just have to
Yes,
ask.
final, yeah, because
That you must ask.
certainly, like, you know, just in the next few minutes, like if you have one more topic and then we can get it up. Yeah, thank you.
That sounds great. I'm happy to open it up for other people to ask questions, and if another one comes to me while in the middle, I'll jump in. Does that work?
Yeah.
All right, I can't see all that well, but I can see big hands. So if anybody wants to ask a question, please, yes, back left. And I'll repeat the question for the online audience.
My name is Stephen Roberts. I'm really thrilled to be here tonight with you all. One quick question for you, sir. I'm a huge fan of Big Fish. And the idea of two parallel storylines, one is it's a reality, one maybe more imaginative. I just read a quote by you about how, you know, especially with your background, when people talk about religion, they often go to Jesus when they thought of something to be inexplicable. You have two storylines here in a new book, which I can't wait to read, two separate storylines. Which one's reality? And when you get to the inexplicable, like, how do you reconcile those things, and how does it meld with your own religious worldview that you're writing?
Well,
I think I was supposed to repeat that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna let you repeat that. That was a long question.
So I am going to have to paraphrase and just rewrite the question so it's one that I want to answer.
Such a politician.
So there's Big Fish, of course, was fiction. It was about a son trying to get to know his dad before he died, but he can't because the father is telling all these stories about himself that the son doesn't believe. And in this book, we have a character, William Neely, who is presenting one facet of himself, which is this amazing, adventurous, artistic, and comfortable in the world man, but beneath that is a person who's very insecure in the world and couldn't find his place in the world. So the way that William influenced me is, again, you were right, it was by osmosis. I feel like led me to create a book like Big Fish. Both my father and William, this idea that we are not who we seem, and every writer, just painting with a broad brush, goes back to the same thing over and over again, and they do it in different clothes. They dress it up in different clothes, but I feel like this book is kind of a prequel and a sequel to that book. And the religious question, that's something that we will have to correspond with. Just give me write me and we can talk more about it.
Nice. Anyone else? Yes.
I do have a question for Lee. I'm wondering if you would be willing to share or tell us if any of these amazing characters are based on any people that you know in real life or have a relationship with or have come across. What do you base them on?
Well, really, I just kind of made them up.
Okay.
But you know, I mean, I think we all do. I mean, if you are a fiction writer, then you're noticing everybody you meet and everybody you know. You're paying a lot of attention to them and how they behave. and so on. And I don't know, I just loved this character of her. I love the person who everybody is telling him what to do, and he's gonna not do it. You know, he's gonna be himself, his old ornery self. I don't know, I just love that kind of character. But Dee Dee really meant a lot to me, and I have, I guess, was doing a benefit in, first, I guess it was in Nashville with Marshall Chapman and Jill McCorkle and Latrice Burr. We used to do this thing, the four of us good old girls, and we would do, you know, Jill and I would read stuff out loud and they would play the music, and it was great. It was really fun, and we did it for a lot of women's causes. And there was a place outside of Nashville where girls were going when they got out that had been on drugs or had been trafficked, and all sorts of things had happened to them, and to just learn how to do things they'd never been able to do, like get a driver's license and do this and do that, and become empowered, you know, learn a trade, you know, just this kind of thing. And so we were doing a benefit for that place, and it just really got me very interested in all sorts of programs such as that. And so Dee Dee does have a difficult past, and she's really trying to get over some things. And so that's where, you know, that's where her character was coming from. So sometimes with me it comes from, you know, from you know, people that I really know, and other times it just comes from something that I've become really, really interested in. And I guess her too, you know, I'm almost 80, so I'm really interested in all these questions that Herb is facing and his wife is having to face very differently. And so for a writer's very lucky, because without going through everything yourself, you can try out different ideas, and you can have your characters go through things, and you can, you know, it's just, and you can also support causes and things that you believe in, and so on. And there, Dee Dee, she's learning all these words, and she said, language and knowledge can empower us, you know, and that's what she's about. So, writing has been wonderful for me, just to give me a chance to explore the things that I believe in, you know, even the things I haven't been like personally involved in necessarily. It just gives you it's just a great pleasure, you know, to live other lives. You know, it's a great pleasure.
Yeah, and we use the stories that correspond also to where we are in our own lives.
Yes.
So this is obviously well, I mean, this is a story you could have written when you were 12, but I think about it all the time, because after I read that sentence, and she read that sentence, and who knew old age was all about urine. I think about that every time I go to the bathroom.
Well, just wait.
I love what Dee Dee is young, and she's energetic, and she's excited by all the new things. She also has such a quiet dignity about her, and I love that. And her too. He's such a curmudgeon, but he's always is so dignified and treated with such dignity. So, anybody else? Yes.
With regard to the Appalachian culture and characters, I wonder if you could say a little bit about the intersection of literature and barbecue.
That's an important question for our at-home audience. The question was about barbecue.
That's for me.
What's the best barbecue in Asheville and in the eastern part of the state?
Okay, so that's a great question. Because of my origin story as far as becoming the barbecue critic of our state magazine, this is true. She hired me because we were out to dinner. We went to a barbecue place, and I said, I'm one of the few people I know who really doesn't love barbecue. And I don't know anything about barbecue. I know that there's all these things that people know, and the two different kinds, the red and the other. I didn't know anything about it. She said, well, I think that would be a good perspective to go to these barbecue joints and not knowing anything and then write about them. So that's what I did, and I went all over the state, and I was fired just before I was coming up here. Yeah.
We'll never know.
Because I don't think the hook really worked that well. I learned a lot of wonderful origin stories for barbecue places because they all have these incredible origin stories. You know how, like my great uncle was running through the night, fell into a pit, and they fell into the pit. They started wrestling, and then somebody got mad. He's down there, and he made the best barbecue. It's all so you don't want to ask me anything about barbecue. So maybe Lee, do you know something about barbecue?
No, I don't know anything.
Okay.
Sushi. I actually owned a sushi bar for years.
That's right.
I didn't know that. Where was your sushi bar?
In Chapelton, in Carborough. It's still going on.
Oh, wow, okay, I didn't know
Still
that.
going on. Everybody that works there owns it now.
Okay, oh, that's awesome.
Okay, and one second, I just want to say this. Lee, through her sushi bar and other reasons, knew a lot of the people in my book.
Yeah.
Holly, my sister, and William would come in and eat there, and knew your kids.
Oh, yeah, well, they came all the time, yeah, and, Holly, who was by then, due to rheumatoid arthritis in the wheelchair, had her pet was a pot-bellied pig. And she'd always bring the pot-bellied pig in, and she loved it because if you could eat at her sushi bar, you could eat in the courtyard. So the pig could come too. The pig's name was Harold, which is my husband's name. So he loved the pig.
There was a hand wave on that, you see.
I have a question about, you say you love living other lives and you went to church. How do you know when you have enough for what you want to write, and if you get stuck, you go back?
So the question is, how do you know when you have enough material to write? And if you get stuck, do you go back?
Well, I think it's hard to say because it's quite different if you're writing nonfiction or fiction. You know, I think with writing fiction, you're learning the story, and then once the characters take on life, it's just like you're along for the ride, you know, and you never know if you're going to wait and see what they're going to do. I mean, once they really become real to you and real on the page, that's why I like to write fiction. Because, you know, I just hate to be bound by the truth. I mean, but when it's nonfiction, I don't know. How do you know when you know enough to write about it? I think that's a very good point, a very good question.
Right. I learned as much writing this book as I do writing a novel. And that's the process of writing, is learning who the characters are, what they're going to do. And you do always, at least I do, have to keep going back because I'll discover something and realize, oh, I haven't set that up well enough, so I'll go back and do it. When I was writing Big Fish, and this is a spoiler alert, I didn't know the father was going to turn into a fish until about 3/4 of the way through.
Well, were you surprised?
I was shocked. I was totally shocked. Nobody's going to believe this. They're going to think it's ridiculous. But I had to go back and I put a lot of little clues in that the reader is supposed to read without really knowing they're reading it. He's swimming a lot in the first part of the book. So these are little things that burrow their way into you. But I didn't know a lot about myself, as much about myself as I know now from writing this book. And there was a ton of revision. And I think that is, there are a lot of most important things, and there are a lot of, this is the heart of being a writer, but knowing the answer to those questions, or what is enough, what is too much, is what makes or breaks a story.
And And it's okay to go back and revise, you know, and cut lots of things into, I mean, I think I often don't know really what the story is until I've written one version of it and realized it really wasn't about her, it was about him, you know, or whatever, you know, but I think that writing is a process. It's not that you're gonna come up with the finished, perfect thing. I love the process because I always learn something, you know, that I didn't know. You know. Also, I love to be other people.
And I was just gonna say, I was thinking, this is my one question. I was thinking about what long careers you both have had, how many books you've written, and what still excites you about writing, about after, you know, is it thinking about the next thing, is it enjoying, you know, do you really enjoy the moment with the book that you're in, or are you still thinking, yeah, what's still fun after how many books now between the two of you? I can't do
97. maybe I counted wrong, but I've done 8, I think she said 17, something like that. 20, yeah. Well, I have a lot of books in my attic. I'm going to count them. So I've read 12 books. My feeling has always been, first of all, it doesn't feel like I've been doing this that long. It really doesn't. You agree? Yeah. And
Are you kidding?
I've always thought I'm writing one book to continue writing, that one book leads to the next book. And we're out here now. This is so much fun to be able to do this. But this whole thing that we're doing, you know, with our books, is going to last, you know, a month, 6 weeks, you know, tops probably. And then we're right back in the place we were before we got here, which is back in the room writing, which is, if you don't love that, then you're just not going to be
Well,
writing.
see, but that's what I love.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
like to be in that.
it.
I like to be in that room, and I love it. And I think I love to. It's a way of having more than one life. I'm not a religious person. This is the only way I'm gonna get it. And I'm serious. You know, it's just particularly to write fiction and to, you know, to create and get to make up these people and then be them for a while, and then they'll surprise you by what happens and so on. It's just been, and to just be able to explore worlds that are, you know, that are not your own, characters that are unlike yourself, and do a lot of research and learn more about other people's lives. You know, it's just, I don't know, it's just been the greatest privilege and pleasure, I think.
Absolutely.